Okay. We're starting off just right. Okay, Doug? Okay, and we're just going to cut to it. So, Doug, just ran into you here at SHOT Show 2018, Las Vegas, Nevada. You are a resident of Arizona. God bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You may want to just pick up the volume a little bit. We've got some ambient background noise, but we're good to
You
go.
mean there's a few people here in the press room?
There's a few people here. There's a few people here at SHOT. Although the numbers seem to be a little down in my humble observation the last few days.
I'm guessing that's because they've become so stringent about who they're letting in. So a lot of companies that would have dozens of guests coming in, have 2 or 3.
Right.
So at the request of exhibitors who want people who are going to buy their product who aren't just window shopping.
Right, just coming in to looky-loo and say, look, well, wow, I was here and But you said they're becoming more stringent. How the hell did I get in?
Good question, Stuart. Why would they let you in anywhere?
Just a hitchhiker from LA, baby. So you are with Knife Rights. I like that. All knives matter, and we've kind of popped off about that over the years, a few years at least. Just tell me what your kind of catch us up with the Knife Rights movement. People that are into knives, and again, if somebody's just into firearms, what have you, the people that follow knife making and are a little more aware of knife makers and the trends already know that there's this Knife Rights movement. I don't know that the general public is really aware of it compared to the firearms rights movement.
No, I mean, it's one of our biggest challenges is educating people about the fact that there is a need to fix bad knife laws in the United States, and that we need their support in order to do that. I mean, we're just like the NRA minus the 5 million members, and my budget might keep the lights on at NRA headquarters for a week. But despite that, in the last 8 years, we've passed 28 bills in 20 states, getting rid of knife bans, passing knife law preemption, which gets rid of local knife restrictions.
What did you call that again? Knife
law preemption.
Preemption.
Which is just like firearms law preemption.
Right.
It means that state law preempts all the local laws.
Correct.
So you don't cross the city line and discover the knife that was legal on one side of the line is now illegal on the other side of the line. If it's legal in the state, it's legal everywhere in the state.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and to that point, a lot of citizens and people in the states are, in some cases, many cases, ignorant of the fact that there is a plethora of knife laws in city ordinances, states, and they change, and sometimes they change, in my humble observation, with the wind almost. But some of them go back to the 1800s. Some of the, as an example, California has some pretty interesting knife regulations on the state level, but also on the city level. And I'm being very kind with that, because I'm a kind guy. I'm a pleasant guy. But so
interestingly enough, California is certainly not the worst state when it comes to knife laws.
Right.
There are many states that are worse.
But what I was getting at is some of those laws go back to like the 1800s, when like the Durker Dagger law in California. My understanding is that actually originated in San Francisco around the gold rush time, when people would be getting into a lot of altercations because of their inebriation, and they wanted to reduce that. They were focusing on an acute problem that is now lingering with us. Does that make sense?
Most of the knife restrictions in the U.S. either came after the Civil War, when it was another way to keep weapons out of the hands of blacks, or in the mid to late 50s, when there was this made-up hysterical reaction to switchblades and gravity knives.
Albeit from a movie, a film. The film industry brought us a headache.
Yes. And those are the kinds of laws that we're busy repealing all over the United States. Interestingly enough, unlike the firearms issue, we get significant bipartisan support for our bills. I mean, we have virtually all our bills passed with major bipartisan support. We get support for our bills from the NAACP, from the ACLU, from the Legal Aid Society.
Now, do they, and just to jump in, because you made and I'm sorry, but I'm curious about a lot of things.
It's almost unimaginable to a gun guy.
Yeah, well, no. The point being, you made the comment that a lot of these laws were enacted as restrictions for black citizens, for people of other ethnicities other than Caucasian Americans. And the firearms laws, many of the firearms laws originated for the very same reason. But you say you get support in the knife rights world from NAACP and some of those other organizations that are traditionally oriented towards, well, there's an argument about if they're really attempting to assist people of color or not, or if they have their own agenda, but their goal is supposed to be that. And so you are getting that kind of support from those organizations as well that are traditionally anti-firearm.
That's true. I mean, we have NRA F-rated Democratic legislators who have sponsored our bills in a number of states.
Wow.
There's something about what we do in getting rid of these knife laws for the Second Amendment community, who consider these tools that are occasionally arms, and there's something for the other side of the aisle who see their people being harassed for carrying a particular kind of knife or arrested. In New York City, where we've been fighting almost a pogrom against knife owners for the last 7 years, 84% of the arrests for carrying an illegal knife are people of color, even in areas that are predominantly white. So there's definitely an abuse of the law against people of color.
Being directed against people of color as different ethnicities.
So for the other side of the aisle, it's a criminal justice reform issue.
Right.
Which is actually something that both conservatives and liberals can get around. Different motivations, but the end result is the same. You don't get that visceral reaction to knives and fixing knife laws as you do with firearms.
Interesting.
And sometimes what we do impacts how they think about firearms, because the issues are very similar. The tool is just different.
Right. And the origin of the legislation, the law, has the same had the same original intent.
The parallels are all there.
Right.
And we occasionally are able to get people to understand that, these aren't any different.
Right.
We introduce the Second Amendment oftentimes to people who are at best ambivalent about firearms, but when you start talking about their knives, which they may be, very interested in, very enthusiastic about, and they realize that that's part of the protection, that as a tool they can be regulated, as a arm there are more protections, they suddenly become defenders of the Second Amendment that they had never considered, their amendment.
That's interesting. How many members do you have? If what is the structure?
We don't release our membership.
Okay.
There's basically three of us. There's myself, my wife, and Todd Rathner, who's my Director of Legislative Affairs or lobbyist. So it's basically three of us that have accomplished this in the last 8 years.
Any of the three attorneys?
No.
Okay, well that's kind of a good thing, and whatever. There's a lot of jokes we could go down that road on.
It's true, but I have to say, we have been.
But you have to defer to to legal recommendations and advice.
Well, and besides the legislative side, we have the litigation side. We've been litigating against New York City and New York DA Cyrus Vance Jr., ably assisted by Dan Rather Jr., for 7 years.
Okay.
We succeeded with amicus briefs in cases in California. Big issue cases that would have extremely poor outcomes if we don't win these. I mean, in New York City, they have arrested over 70,000 people in the last 13 years.
13 years.
13 years. And this is not a traffic ticket. This is a potential year in jail. And with a prior conviction, it's an automatic bump up to a felony.
Now, does New York, is that considered a felony violation, or?
It's a misdemeanor violation to start, but again, if you have a prior conviction, it's a felony. And people have literally gone to jail for 6 or 7 years just because they were carrying a tool in them.
Pocket knife. Basically a pocket knife.
Blade pocket knife.
Right, and of course
the most common knives in the United States. That won't get you arrested virtually anywhere else in this country.
Right, and literally for just carrying it, just to say a 2-inch blade, which sometimes I know that
we have had people that we've met that have been arrested for blades 1.25 inches, 1 3/8. I mean, tiny little keychain knives.
Right, amazing. And of course, part of that problem, in some cases, is misapplication of an existing law by the law enforcement agency or the law enforcement individual making contact with that person.
In the case of New York City, our lawsuit is that this wrist flick test that they have come up with is void for vagueness, because the fact of the matter is nobody can know their knife is legal, because it doesn't matter if you can't wrist flick your knife open, but if any officer or prosecutor can, then it's an illegal knife. Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, if you can bring
to
it,
tell if it's legal.
if you can bring in, basically, in other words, if you can bring in a professional wrist flicker to professionally deploy that knife that almost no one else can do it, now it becomes a violation.
That's correct.
Amazing. Well, that's the ambiguity of a lot of these laws. And
our solution to ambiguity is simply get rid of the law.
Right.
Because these are tools. These are tools used by millions of Americans every day, at home, at work. You know,
it's almost ridiculous now. Everywhere you look. I can remember, say, 10, 15 years ago, I would maybe perhaps notice a pocket clip on someone's pocket and recognize what it is. Of course, that's also could have been other devices like a pager or what have you, but it was pretty rare, relatively rare, and now it's virtually, I said ubiquitous earlier, but it's just endemic in society. You see almost everyone of almost any ethnicity, almost any background, in some cases, traditionally men, but in some cases ladies, are, carrying pocket clip knives. In some cases another law is if that lock blade knife is in the pocket, in some cases it's considered concealed. Whereas if it's clipped, it's not considered.
The interesting thing about New York City is New York City Administrative Code has a 4-inch blade limit, and all knives must be completely concealed. So if you have a knife clipped to your pocket, you're breaking the administrative law.
Amazing. And then in some jurisdictions, to my understanding, and I could be wrong, I am many times, if that locking blade knife is not clipped and partially exposed, if it's in the bottom of your pocket, that may be considered a violation.
There are a few places like that, but there's also, Philadelphia, it's illegal to carry a knife.
Of any type?
Of any type, any way.
Even a plastic butter knife?
Well, I can't talk to plastic butter knives.
Well, I'm being a little facetious, but it's possible.
But you're allowed to have one at work. But how do you get the knife to work?
Exactly, especially if you're taking public transportation.
Now the good news is Philadelphia isn't out there, enforcing against all the people in Philadelphia that don't know that's law and are carrying a knife. But should a prosecutor decide to make some headlines, they certainly could.
Right.
So hopefully one of these days we'll get Pennsylvania sorted out, get preemption passed, and then that law will go away.
Very good, Doug. Now, approximately how many, just a ballpark figure if you don't know exactly, about how many laws have you been able to reverse over the last, say, 5 years?
Well, at the state level, we have been able to reverse laws in 18 states. And a total of 20 states, we've fixed various knife bans, sometimes through preemption, which simply got rid of sometimes dozens or more local laws to make them the same as state law, which was already pretty good. In many cases at the state level, we've gotten rid of bans on, switchblades, dirk daggers, Bowie knives. I mean, just last year, we got rid of the ban on carrying a Bowie knife in Texas.
Of all kind of reasons.
When you would tell people that it's illegal to carry a Bowie knife in Texas, their eyes would go, what? But we're going to be in Austin on Tuesday presenting a Bowie knife to Governor Abbott, thanking him for signing that bill. We had hoped to do it at the Alamo with this little hurricane passed through Texas that week. So.
Created a little havoc. Yeah. Very good. Well, anything else that's maybe on the pending roster for you?
We're still working in Congress. We have the Knife Owners Protection Act, which includes the repeal of the 1958 Federal Switchblade Act. That's certainly
on the federal level, of course.
On the federal level, that would get rid of restrictions on interstate transport of those knives. Would make it much easier for manufacturers to sell their knives throughout the United States now that the vast majority of states allow automatic knives.
Right.
That's a priority, and we really want to get it done before the 2018 election.
Absolutely, fantastic.
And
now, if go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, if people want to find out more about knife rights, please go to our website, kniferights.org, and there's all kinds of information there that I think anyone interested in this subject will find useful.
And if organizations or individuals would like to make a donation, I'm sure that you're open to that as an option.
We are certainly open to donations, anytime, any amount.
And through that same website, correct? Very good. Anything else you'd like to add?
I think we're good.
Beautiful. Great voice there, brother. You were talking about how you're getting a little froggy on the on Wednesday of SHOT Show. So
yeah, I'm about talked out.
About time for you to have a cigar.
I'll pass.
Well, okay, we'll have to get you started sometime. We'll do it left-handed from the Baden-Powell thing. The quasi-knife bit, if you will, is the left-hand shake from Boy Scouts comes from when Baden-Powell was meeting with and negotiating with chiefs of the Ashanti tribes in Africa, and they would say, when he reached out to shake hands with his right hand, they would say, no, the bravest of the brave will drop their shield and use their left hand to shake as a sign of confidence and I guess integrity. So
there you go.
Anyways, we've kind of been popping off of that a little bit. So you have a good remainder of your SHOT Show and good luck with the organization and your fight.
Thank you. You too, Stuart.